All right, good evening, everyone. This is Cathexis, and I'm here with Quantum Eraser. Once again, we're doing the second part of our presentation, where we are going through and trying to understand the philosophical side to issues among science and making the distinction between scientism. Um, in order to do that properly, we have to have a good foundational understanding of what these terms are, what materialism is, what naturalism is, what physicalism is. These are all pretty much one and the same, and we'll go over that. Also, what idealism is, or even further. This goes completely down the line. You can, if you study philosophy, you'll find that there's subdivisions of all this, and it gets pretty weighted down. But we're going to try to make it a little bit more poignant, a little bit more succinct tonight. And so John's going to be doing a presentation demonstrating how materialism is essentially a belief system, is essentially a religion. And this is something in modern times we don't really hear much of. Now, perhaps in the halls of philosophical, groups or colleges at high level, you might hear something like this. But in the mainstream, science is viewed as this unquestionable aspect of humanity. The white coats are there to tell you the truth, and that we need to build our world off of what these people are telling us. And this authority structure has been put into us from birth. We hear the if somebody says, "Oh, it's scientifically verified," or if it's doctor approved, we tend to, well, most people, the majority of people, will tend to just go with it and allow it to be. So we're going to break this down tonight a little bit. John's got an excellent presentation, and we will make it available. We had a couple requests prior, so we will make it available once we're finished here. I'll end up putting in the description a little bit later. He has some extra additions, and we want to make sure we get it right. So without further ado, how are you doing tonight, John?
I'm doing fine, sir. How are you?
Doing well. I really appreciate you coming around and us doing these, because they're just topics that aren't being talked about, except in these very specific like alternative cosmology and these very specific fields, so to speak. So we'll go ahead and get right into it tonight. I'm going to do it a little different. We're going to have John. He's just going to give the presentation outright, and I will then, of course, after he's finished, I'll go through and either go back to anything that he may have said that I have a question about, or we'll continue on forward with the conversation. But I do want to give a disclaimer. These are John's opinions and thoughts and facts and logic when it comes to this topic. And I agree with this man damn near 100%. He has done the work. He has broken this down. And I think that it's every person should absolutely listen to what he's saying. So without further ado, why don't you go ahead?
Well, thank you, sir. It's my pleasure to be on here. Let's see what we got. I just want to make sure that the presentation is going to be loaded.
Yep, we see it.
Let me go ahead and update. All right, that's good enough for me.
Perfect.
All right, well, this is going to be a difficult subject for many that have thought that things are the way they are, and that's just the way they are. And mostly I'm going to point out, and what you'll find by the end of the presentation is that there are a lot of terms that have been misappropriated and misdefined. And once you do define terms, then the subject reconciles itself. And like I said in my last presentations, that I'm a big believer in the Socratic method, and that is to define terms. Make sure that what I call banana and what you call a banana is a banana, and that I'm not arguing for a banana and you're arguing for an orange. That's where most of the miscommunication comes in, most of the frustration, and the conversation and the subject usually winds down the toilet into the oblivion. All right, so let's get started. Materialism, realism, methodological naturalism, or material reductionism are all what they call atheism. When it boils right down to it, that's what it is. It's a religion. As a matter of fact, it's a scientifically falsified religion. We'll get to that in a moment. The quintessential tenet, or the sine qua non of religion, is belief without evidence. The definition from the American Heritage Dictionary: faith, belief that does not rest on logical proof or material evidence. Now, we're going to come back to this definition throughout the presentation, and we're going to hit upon it at the end very hard. The object of this faith is irrelevant. It could be a deity, it could be rocks, earth, wind, or fire. It's the method here that is in focus. It is belief without evidence. And that's why religion is indicted in the secular community. We all know this. So let's define atheism. Atheism, a positive claim concerning the lack of belief in the existence of a deity. By virtue of this stance, and since there are only two choices, that's a true dichotomy for how we are here. First, you have the unguided, that's nature or matter, or guided, intelligent agency, God. Those are your only two choices. It's not a multiple choice question. If you take one stance, you ipso facto believe the other. There's no way out. Therefore, the atheist creator must be matter. Has to be. Let me try to explain this. From George Wald, Nobel laureate in medicine and physiology. The reasonable view was to believe in spontaneous generation. The only alternative to believe in a single primary act of supernatural creation. There is no third position here. So let's break this down. Premise one, the reasonable view was to believe in spontaneous generation. That is nature, unguided. The only alternative, and it solves it right there, we really don't have to go any further, a single primary act of supernatural creation. That is God or guided. It's that simple. From the two premises, you get the conclusion. It's a true dichotomy. Nature, unguided, versus God, guided. There is no third position. So one choice, logically, invalidates the other. It's based on the law of non-contradiction. Can't get around it. So let's get to cases. Premise one. The first law of thermodynamics, pillar of science, or one law, states that nature or natural phenomena cannot create or destroy matter or energy. Premise two. The universe had a beginning. See the second law of thermodynamics. It's a pillar of science or two law. Conclusion. Since there was a cosmic beginning, and matter and energy can't create itself, and matter exists, therefore, something else outside and not bound to universal laws created matter and energy. Can't get around it. But the materialist and atheist conclusions must be: conclusion one, matter or energy created itself. That's a direct violation of the first law of thermodynamics. Or conclusion two, matter or energy existed forever. That's a direct violation of the second law of thermodynamics. So, for the materialists to remain consistent with the principles of their worldview, they are forced to dismiss as false the laws of thermodynamics. And I thought atheists clung to science as their white knight. We got a big problem right here. And that's not the only one. But we could stop right here and end it, because this can't be reconciled.
I agree.
Yeah, it cannot be reconciled. You just can't do it. If you think that's science and logic denying absurdity, you ain't seen anything yet. Materialism, realism, or atheism's entire religious foundation holds with a kung fu death grip that matter exists independent of perception and consciousness. That's what materialism is. I'd like to ask you, have you heard of quantum mechanics, peradventure? You know, the most experimentally verified and validated field of actual science in the history of man. The same that has sent materialism and realism, atheism, into the incoherent oblivion. Because you kind of have some big problems. Namely, being in direct contradiction to literally thousands of experiments. Real science, experiments. And this shot fires right across the bow. This is from Bernard de Espinal, from the Quantum Theory and Reality in Scientific American. Listen to this closely. The doctrine that the world is made up of objects whose existence is independent of human consciousness, that's materialism, realism, atheism, turns out to be in conflict with quantum mechanics and with facts established by experiment. Period. Basically, if I can encapsulate quantum mechanics, this would encapsulate it. In order for matter to exist, there must be a knower first. Hard stop. End of story. We can all go home. You can't get around this. Matter is the consequent. The knower is the necessary antecedent. It must come first. And it's validated by experiment till the cows come home. I'm not going to go through all these experiments. I have 6 of them here. They'll be in with the materials that I hand over to Cathexis. And we're going to go over this experiment right here. This is the undisputed. Wesley Snipes got to take a back seat to this one. It's from Kim in 2000. A delayed choice quantum eraser from Physical Review Letters. This experiment, in 25 years of doing experiments and evaluating them, I have never come across one of such simple brilliance and just the jaw-dropping implications that result from it. There is no equal to this experiment, in my humble opinion. I've not come across it. Now, in later videos, we are going to go through an exposition of this experiment, and we'll explain it in excruciating detail. But for right now, in conclusion, this experiment unequivocally validates A, knowledge or knowing the which path information alone causes wave function collapse. When I say wave function collapse, I mean the formation of matter. The wave function must collapse to form matter. B, decoherence, the physical interaction with measuring devices, does not cause wave function collapse. And C, QM phenomena transcend time and space. That is, space-time has utterly no meaning in quantum mechanics whatsoever. None. If you're unsure about that, there are experiments that validate this and repeat it, not in the same way, however, that have the same results. You can't get around it. The The son of this experiment happened in 2013. This not only confirms the delayed choice quantum eraser, it confirms it by orders of magnitude. And this is the quantum erasure with the causally disconnected choice. Is from Pinos. The presence of the path information anywhere in the universe is sufficient to prohibit any possibility of interference. It is irrelevant whether a future observer might decide to acquire it. The mere possibility is enough. Ergo, therefore, the lack of which path information anywhere in the universe is sufficient enough to prohibit any possibility of wave function collapse. That is the formation of matter. And this is what I wanted to focus on. We're talking about realism, materialism. These are the conclusions from this experiment. No naive realistic picture is compatible with our results. It is therefore suggestive to abandon such pictures altogether. Just from this experiment, it's over. And this experiment, it's over. One of the more shocking experiments is the experimental non-classicality of an indivisible quantum system in nature, and it's validating the Koch-Inspector theorem. Listen to what Anton Zellinger has to say about this experiment. There is no sense in assuming that what we do not measure about a system has an independent reality. He's telling, it's mind-boggling. He's telling you here that if you don't measure it, it does not exist in this reality, period. And it goes on, the physics world went on and talked about this experiment. New Scientists went on. They were gobsmacked by it because it echoed from Werner Heisenberg, Nobel laureate in physics. And of course, he's known by the uncertainty principle. Listen to what he has to say about this. And this was back in the day. The atoms or elementary particle themselves are not real. They form a world of potentialities or possibilities rather than one of things or facts. That's what these people up here were talking about. It's echoing the same thing. As I said, we get into non-locality, another death knell for materialism and atheism. There's the Grobler experiment, Manning, and Henson. And what I'd like to highlight here is in all these experiments, look at what they're saying. Realism should be abandoned. Realism, materialism, atheism, it has to be abandoned. Its tenets do not conform to experimental results. Rejection of the local realist null hypothesis. It's rejected. It's done. It's over. I can post 1,875, probably more than 2,000 experiments that validate this without exception. And it's real easy. Like we went over before when we were talking about Einstein's theories, special relativity and general relativity. To overturn the scientific falsification of locality and by direct proxy, materialism, realism, or atheism, whereby invalidating idealism or Christianity, which is not a religion, by the way, and we'll get to that, and as an ancillary benefit, collect yourself a feather in your cap, Nobel Prize. All you have to do is take up the Quantum Randy Challenge. It's out there for you. The Quantum Randy Challenge, henceforth QRC, challenges any pseudoscientist, that is atheist, as it were, who claims that quantum physics is not true and that quantum entangle experiments can be explained by a classically realistic and locally causal model. That's all you have to do. If you do it, you not only get a Nobel Prize, but you get an additional $1 million. All you have to do is prove naive realism or local realism, or materialism, or atheism, in other words, is true, and it's not observation dependent. 4 years, 4+ years now, no takers. I wonder why. I'll monitor the presses on that one, and it's not going to happen. Not a chance. So let's summarize what we have until now. So far, to be an atheist, that is, no God, you must believe the laws of thermodynamics, pillars of science, are false. All physical laws, that is, quantum mechanics, because quantum mechanics are all physical laws, are false. The law of cause and effect is falsified. Of course, that's what science is founded upon. And something can come from nothing naturally. Does that sound scientific to you? Doesn't sound too scientific to me.
Not at all.
So, the above two examples, the target audience for those are portioned for the intellectuals in the hallowed halls of academia. This next one brings all second graders into the fold. So let's go ahead and define it again. Atheism, a positive claim concerning the lack of belief in the existence of a deity. So again, to be atheistic towards an intelligent creator, you ipso facto must be theistic towards matter. There's no way out. It's either one or the other. That is, that the material physical world is all that exists. B, that the material physical world exists outside perception and consciousness. We falsified that above. And C, matter created itself. That means it pre-existed before it existed. We don't even need the first law of thermodynamics. And has volition. That's falsified above. So let me ask you a question. Do these exist? Truth, logic, information, time, thoughts, math. Do they exist? These are immaterial. To validate your worldview, materialism, please provide the chemical structure, charge, mass, momentum, and spin of each of these. You must do that to conform to the tenets of your religion. You have to do it. In an atheistic, materialistic, realist worldview, how on earth can the immaterial exist without violating the law of non-contradiction? In other words, how can the material physical world be all that exists and have immaterial exist at the same time? It's a contradiction on its face. These, truth, logic, information, time, thoughts, math, are by definition supernatural. So if you're an atheist and you believe that these exist, then you must be this. You have to be this, a supernatural atheist. That'll give married bachelors a run for their money. Essentially, what you're doing, which is so incomprehensibly absurd, it's hard to put into words, but I'll try. You're adopting the Christian worldview by using immaterial, that is, thoughts, truth, logic, and information, the very things your religion must deny, as the vehicle or medium to present evidence against the very thing you don't believe in, a creator, the Christian worldview. Does that make sense? It's tantamount to attempting to falsify air, all the while breathing in vast quantities to reach the invalidation. Logically, it's a hammer meet floor fire scenario. Every atheist is a presuppositional kleptomaniac. Stop stealing, then using my worldview to feebly attempt to falsify my worldview, please. I like to provide visuals. Here it is. This is your position. It's just as simple as that. You can't get around it. One last train wreck. And I talked about this when we first started the discussion about this definition. And that's faith. So this is from American Heritage Dictionary. Faith. Belief that does not rest on logical proof or material evidence. Right? That's what the definition says. But Max Planck in 1932 said this in Where is Science Going? Give a listen. Anybody who has been seriously engaged in scientific work of any kind realizes that over the entrance to the gates of the temple of science are written the words, "Ye must have faith." It is a quality which the scientist cannot dispense with. Does everyone see the problem here? I'll tell you one problem. Something happened between 1932 and 1991 that changed the definition of faith. Because this doesn't marry up, does it? These two are antithetical. So please reconcile. Somebody please reconcile these two definitions and the context that they're used in by the American Heritage Dictionary or Max Planck. I mean, this definition right here would probably best be defined as that. Blind faith. Right? But
Yeah.
it's not.
Yeah,
Yes,
that
yes,
distinction is definitely something that needs to be made. There is
yeah,
absolutely a difference, of course, blind faith, but faith itself has such a connotation where
sure.
people automatically believe it's belief without knowledge. But that's what blind faith is.
Yes,
So I really appreciate you making that distinction. A lot of people hear the word faith and they turn off.
yes,
They don't know what the word truly means. But the problem is every single day, everyone has faith in the laws of physics. Every single person has faith that the system works as it is. And I think that's what this quote really means.
yes,
Ye must have faith. Faith in the laws of the physical world.
yeah,
Blind faith would be something different. So
yes, exactly. You got it.
perfect.
Okay, so let's roll with this. Let me make a couple other points. So, and if Christianity is a religion, that is faith or belief without evidence, like the definition described it above, and God explicitly admonishes all Christians to what? Prove all things. Well, wait a second. That doesn't add up. That's belief without evidence. How can you have belief without evidence and have God state to prove all things? That's contra. How in the world can Christianity be classified as a religion or faith without violating the law of non-contradiction, pray tell? You can't. It doesn't matter. They're married bachelors. In conclusion, phlogiston, 13th century alchemy, and Humpty Dumpty are more tenable than atheism. What do these gentlemen have to say about it? Christian Alfonson, Nobel Prize in Chemistry. I think only an idiot can be an atheist. We must admit that there exists an incomprehensible power or force with limitless foresight and knowledge that started the whole universe going in the first place. That's not too politically correct. Said that back in the day. These are back in the days.
It's this next quote that really
Werner
helps.
Heisenberg, like I said, famed from the uncertainty principle, pioneer of quantum mechanics, Nobel Prize in it. The first gulp from glass of natural science will turn you into an atheist. But at the bottom of the glass, who's waiting for you? He's seen it. All these guys seen it.
The creator. A creator. It's evident if you get that far down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, we have all these people saying, climbing on the mountains and the rooftops, screaming there is no God. These people, they even haven't even acquired the glass yet, much less taken a first gulp from it.
Well, yeah, with all the pseudoscience that runs around masquerading as
Exactly,
science.
exactly. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. These guys, they knew this 100 years ago.
yeah.
Why doesn't anyone know about this? Why isn't anyone talking about these things?
Well, I mean, it goes back to how you pointed out. Materialism is a religion. It's a belief system that is based off of the notion that the only thing that exists is the quantifiable, the material. Now, the way that I see it, methodological materialism has gotten us to an amazing point in history. Our technology, our engineering, our sciences
And what are
are
those
built.
sciences?
Oh, I mean, the two main ones, quantum physics and, oh gosh, what was the other one that you mentioned?
Biochemistry,
Biochemistry. Yeah, these are
quantum
the anchors
physics.
of true science.
That is true. That's how we got there, by using true science, the scientific method, not by the
Yeah,
other pseudoscientific clowns. They're not science.
I agree. And that's what's so important about this. This is why I'm really happy to have you on, because we have been indoctrinated into this belief system. And this is what every person struggles with in the West. They're told from birth this Big Bang cosmology, that which, if you are philosophically uh, honest with yourself, it will lead you to atheism. But the premise of it is materialism. Is this notion that I'm sorry, that all this matter was created when you add gravity. That's what Lawrence Krauss says. The Big Bang absolutely could happen. All you needed was a little bit of gravity. It's like that's what he thinks. He thinks gravity and matter
Well,
created this entire
first I'd like
construct.
I'd like to ask them. Don't you have to have two masses for gravity? Where'd you First of all, where'd you get the mass?
Well, he's talking
Second
about the
of all,
singularity. He's
sec-
talking about in the singularity, but what is the singularity existing in?
well,
It gets so ridiculously metaphysical
yeah.
with these people.
Well, where'd you get the matter? And then where did you get the space it occupies?
Yeah,
He's
material is their creator.
he has got the cart. I don't know about the cart. He's got the whole farm before the horse.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. They don't have much to stand on when they get out that far. It's
Yeah,
just like
it's
the picture. They're cutting
it's
off
right there.
the limb they're sitting on.
Yeah.
And this is something that I fell for, and I think a lot of people do. When my first gulp of natural sciences turned me into an atheist. I was an atheist for close
Sure.
to 10 years, when I was going through college and then afterwards. And it's frustrating to look back upon it, because in this presentation, I'm not trying to prove a creator in this moment. What I'm trying to point out here is that materialism is a belief system where material is the creator. And
Yes.
the rational material atheists, they're going to say that that's preposterous, but you've just kind of proven it through the way you broke it down. So they're a walking contradiction.
Exactly.
And when I look back at the time frame when I was a militant atheist too. And I was always like, I felt like, looking back, I felt like I had blinders on my entire time. Because what you have to do is say X, Y, and Z can't happen. That you have to deny mysticism, you have to deny uh, energy and all of these, new age concepts too, but you have to deny everything. Everything becomes woo-woo or pseudoscience. So these blinders are firmly put on you, and you are just being drug around by this belief system.
You
thinking
not
that the
only have to,
material world is
you
the only
not
thing that
only,
exists.
you have to deny the actual experiments and already established scientific laws and principles. We're not talking about, I'm not making this stuff up. We're talking about the laws of thermodynamics, quantum mechanics, and we're going to get into what all these sciences are based on. They have two commonalities, the real sciences. One, they have the ability to follow the scientific method. Number two, they are all based on a foundation of information.
Yes, sir.
They are all today information sciences, whether it be genetics, biochemistry, quantum mechanics, all of them are based on information. And we're going to get into that here in the next couple videos, series of videos,
Absolutely.
right?
And that's something I do want to point out. You went over it very quickly, but it's something that really, I don't know, it changed my views on a lot of things or clarified them. In a materialist world, they have no answer for information, for truth, for ideas, for these things are supernatural because there is no physicality to them. There is no equation. And they just slough it off and say they're epiphenomenon, like it happens because of other things.
Well, that
But
doesn't
that's not a
explain
good
anything.
answer. It doesn't explain anything. Yeah, it's not an answer. These are consciousness exists, these things exist, and they are immaterial.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
you see this as a massive problem in modern neuroscience and cognitive sciences. They're dealing with they call it the problem of consciousness.
The hard
That's the
problem of
title.
consciousness.
It's absolutely. And there it goes into so many ways philosophically. We can get into solipsism, we can get into collective solipsism, but it needs to be understood that materialism has no answer for that phenomena, for those phenomena. And this is why they want to tell you that you're a biological robot and that consciousness is kind of kind of an anomaly that occurs through the different. Seriously, I've been told this way and read about it this way, that it's an anomaly that is manufactured through the chemicals and functions of your brain, and that it's only there to just help sort information, and that's it. But we know it's much deeper than that. There are several different levels of consciousness. There's several different layers of ability that comes from consciousness and honing consciousness correctly, but none of this can be accounted for in the materialist worldview.
No, and it's falsified anyway.
Yes. So I think that materialism is a necessary thing, though. And that's why I went
Yes.
back and said, there is a physical world around us. But when we're
Yes.
getting down to the deeper philosophical axioms of what is going on, the quantum realm, which is the real physics of the world, tells us that there cannot be matter without a knower.
Exactly.
So it goes way deeper. And I think a lot of people have heard about this stuff recently, or I mean, you hear people talk about simulation theory and things like that.
Yep.
So I think that that's kind of one of the only answers you can come up with after looking at this. And these scientists, these experiments, you have 1,800 of them listed.
Oh yeah, I can't even file them all.
Yeah, quantum physics is well understood on that science practicality level. Like they've done so many experiments to prove consistently that wave function collapse occurs when there's an observer.
No,
So
now be careful. It's not only an observer; it's a knower of the which path information. You don't have to look at anything.
oh, I see. That's a very good distinction.
Yeah, a
So
lot of people, because it's been written about that way as the observer or observation. That is true because you can sit there and look at a double slit experiment all day long. You're still going to get an interference pattern. That's my comeback for that one because it'll still be an interference pattern. You can look at it, doesn't matter.
And the materialists have no answer for this.
Oh no, they never.
This is why
They never did.
it's spooky action at a distance. This is why there's all of these, like they treat it like woo woo new age. They don't know how to respond to it because,
No,
and I mean the more devout materialists, they have no idea how to respond to it.
they have to. They have to create a barrier because the validated experiments of quantum mechanics directly contradict their worldview. There's no way out. So you have to you have to erect barriers. You have to call it names like we've all heard in quantum mechanics. It's spooky, or it's
Spooky.
strange, or it's all the watchwords. You hear them everywhere you go. Any literature you have on quantum mechanics, why do they do that? Well, it is crazy because they're basing their view off their worldview.
Yep.
According to their worldview, yeah, it's strange.
In
It
rational
is
materialism,
paradoxical.
yeah,
Yeah,
it can't be.
it can't be. It's contradictory to their worldview. Exactly. They have to
Yeah.
categorize it that way.
So you have a huge category of people who just dismiss it outright.
And what you had as a result of that experiment, the quantum eraser experiment, you have physicists then and currently going in droves to Eastern mystery religions.
Mm-hmm.
You got them in droves because there's no way out.
No, no, and that's what seems right to them, as they go forward, and they're converting, like you said, in droves, and you
You
do
can
see this
listen to
quite a
some of
lot.
these. You can
Yeah,
listen to some of these people on I don't remember all their names. I've watched, physicist roundtable and stuff. They're talking about this. They're going to Hinduism, Buddhism. They're all over. They're going east.
yeah, yeah. I've seen that as well. I've seen plenty of people go there. I've actually found some really great blogs from physicists over the past year who are coming up with their own metaphysics,
Yep.
essentially.
Yep.
Like they're rational materialists, but now
Yep.
they're making addendums to their
It's an
metaphysical.
addendum. Yeah. Yeah. You're right.
It's so it's interesting. We are seeing this progression, but the religion of materialism is still firmly placed. And this is what the core of scientism is,
Yep.
in my opinion.
No, you're
Scientism, of
correct.
course, yeah, it's more than that. It's this unhealthy belief that science is the only way to discover the world. And I think that it has an amazing ability to find things out in this world, but it is not the only one. And that's what I'm here trying to scream from the mountaintops. Uh,
Ironically, it was experiments that pummeled it.
yeah,
If you think about it, it was the scientific method that pummeled materialism. The irony of it it floors me. But I'll tell you what, that upsets a lot of people.
big time. You're messing with someone's religion.
Oh yeah.
Go tell a devout Christian that Christ isn't real. Or, you know what I mean? Like, just give them a contradiction of what they believe. And a person who is in a religious state of mind or state of being, they will lash out at you.
Yeah.
And that's not a slight against Christians. I'm saying just religion in general. If you're
Yes.
following religion,
Yes.
that's what it does.
Yes,
And
exactly.
and that's why I think it's important to make this distinction, like you did. I know your worldview is of a Christian worldview, and you don't consider the way that you follow to be a religion called Christianity.
No, it's not a religion by
Yeah, prove
definition.
all things.
Yep, you have to prove all things, and in religions, as the faith definition above said, belief without evidence, they can't coexist at the same time. That's a contradiction.
It is. It is. And I really respect that worldview. Absolutely. I've never heard anybody articulate it that way. And I honestly have a tremendous amount of respect for that. It's a very good way of putting it.
Well, thank you.
But when it comes to the religion of materialism, those two words combined will trigger damn near every single person who is a materialist.
Yeah,
And I think that should be an indicator there's something wrong.
yeah,
That
it's a tell. That's what they call them. Poker
it's
is
a
a tell.
tell.
Yeah,
Exactly. It is. And so the reason I really want to do this and go forward, and we have several other presentations that are backing this up. I think the next one we'll do is on information.
Well, why don't you give me a little latitude here for the next couple minutes? I want to touch on a subject. It has some ramifications in quantum mechanics, but focuses a little bit on fine tuning and just the overall topic.
Sure, if you'd like to add to it, go ahead.
Yeah. So I just like to go over these just last couple ones. They could be illuminating for you. From Paul Davies, he's a world-renowned astrophysicist and author. He says here, scientists are slowly waking up to an inconvenient truth. The universe looks suspiciously like a fix. The issue concerns the very laws of nature themselves. For 40 years, physicists and cosmologists have been quietly collecting examples of all too convenient coincidences and special features in the underlying laws of the universe that seem to be necessary in order for life, and hence conscious beings to exist. Change any one of them, and the consequences would be lethal. Fred Hoyle, the distinguished cosmologist, once said, it was as if a super intellect has monkeyed with the physics. And Fred Hoyle is the one that coined the phrase Big Bang for just for general purpose.
That's good to mention. And with that, you're speaking about the fine tuning issue. Is that here? I'll let you go on. We'll get to it.
Okay. Again, Paul Davies. Over the years, I have often asked my physicist colleagues why the laws of physics are what they are. The answers vary from that's not a scientific question to nobody knows. The favorite reply is there is no reason they are what they are, they just are. The idea that the laws exist reasonlessly is deeply anti-rational. After all, the very essence of a scientific explanation of some phenomenon is that the world is ordered logically and that there are reasons things are as they are.
So if there are laws, it implies a lawgiver.
He's sort of kind of implying it.
He does seem to be a little bit.
He says if one traces these reasons all the way down to the bedrock of reality, the laws of physics, only to find that reason then deserts us, it makes a mockery of science. And it does. So to the fine tuning, he is trying more so in the above reference, speaking to the fine tuning, or where certain constants, there are many of them, that have to be such that if they were to be tweaked, even in the minute amount, there would be no life. So we have Leonard Susskind. He's the professor of physics at Stanford. He's speaking to fine tuning here. Listen to what he has to say. Nobody thinks that's accidental. That is not a reasonable idea. That something is tuned to 120 decimal places just by accident. I think they, physicists, were somewhat afraid that if it was admitted that the reason the world is the way it is has to do with our own existence, that could be hijacked by the creationists and intelligent designers. Oh my goodness gracious. Welcome to the pseudoscience Politburo in Shangri-La. That's where we're at.
Yeah, they definitely sold us a fictional world in large regard.
Yeah, but they're withholding information based on a presupposition or a worldview.
Absolutely.
They're Politburo. They're from the Politburo. And check this one. This is really cool. The reason that the world is the way it is has to do with our very own existence. Well, guess what quantum mechanics has been saying since the beginning? The reason that the world is the way that it has or is to do with our very own existence. That's what it's been saying from the beginning. And of course, this is what we hear with this one. We're almost finished. The incoherent comeback to the fine-tuning argument. Well, if we weren't here, then we couldn't even ask the question, right? Everyone's heard this before.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. They put this out at committee meetings or something. They just give you this sheet of paper. Hey, if you ever hear anything like this, here, just give them this. Without thinking about it. Guess what this is? It's a fallacy. It's the fallacy of a relevant thesis. It's a type of red herring fallacy. It's arguing a point that's irrelevant to the subject at hand. Let me give you the example. You're a reporter, and you just asked the sole survivor of a plane crash, how or why is it that he was able to survive? And he answers you, because if I hadn't survived, you wouldn't have been able to ask me the question. Well, this is a fallacy. Like I said, it's a red herring. Yeah. What he said is one of those truths. However, he didn't answer the question.
No,
the question was how or why he survived, not how or why he was able to answer the question. I mean, when I hear this, you can see me face palming.
It's a dismissive way to deal with the subject. It essentially is what that is. And they don't have a better answer, or else their worldview will shatter.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we see this often. We really do. The pseudosciences. Yeah. The pseudosciences. This is one of their main tactics.
Yeah. All right. So let's go. I want to go back up just in case, because I went through them. I don't know if I went through them too fast. Maybe people didn't catch them. They can always go ahead and rewind the video and take a look at them. But let's do it for for you. Maybe there was some things in here that you made a mental note of and said, well, wait a second, and would like to go into it. So we can go through it real quick.
Well, yeah, for sure. There was a couple of notes that I had, concerning that issue of faith that you had presented. The word, and I know we slightly clarified earlier, but I really want to reiterate this. The word itself has so much baggage attached to it that people associate blind faith with the word faith.
Yes.
And even me up until quite recently. The word faith is not this implicit negative of believing something without good reason to do so. It's a reliance on what is true. Unless you have that blind faith, and then it becomes a problem, in my opinion. Would you say I articulated that?
No, yeah, you're right on it. And like I said before, it's easier to go ahead and substitute the definition for the word and see if it makes sense. So let's do it. So we're going to substitute this definition for what Max Planck was saying. So anybody who has been seriously engaged in scientific work of any kind realizes that over the entrance to the gates of the temple of science are written the words, "Ye must have belief that does not rest on logical proof or material evidence." There's something.
There is a reliance. There is a reliance on what they don't understand, which is why there are laws, why those things exist, and yet they just proceed and ignore the question. Typically. So when I read, when this comes, when I first heard this from you, and I see this right now, the faith I think that exists here is that faith of the physical laws, the laws of nature and whatnot. And there's nothing wrong with having a reliance on that. It's what science is. But science, modern science, and what it has done is They don't ask the who. They only ask the where, the what, the why. And this is a quote from Neil deGrasse Tyson. And when he said, we don't ask the who, he started laughing. He was I forgot where it was that he had made this comment. But
Mhm.
this is essentially what we're dealing with here. The materialism belief system refuses to ask specific questions in order to, ignore a very inconvenient problem for them. So I really appreciate you pointing it out that way.
Yeah, it I think I think it boils down to an equivocation fallacy. That's what this has to be, because they're using a word in this instance right here between these two. You're using the same word in two different senses in a single argument. So that's a textbook
Yeah.
equivocation fallacy. So what I'm saying is somebody messed with this word between 1932 and 1991 because
I don't doubt it.
Max had a different idea of what this word meant, because this makes no sense. This
Yeah,
definition makes no sense in here.
I get you. Now,
So
I saw somebody in the comments just quickly
sure.
ask, how could the Big Bang cosmology lead a man to atheism? Or actually said, how could heliocentricity lead a man to atheism? And I've said this before. I don't know if I'm, going to bore you for reiterating it, everyone, but model, when it came out in 1543, he was going against 1,000 years of reigning ideas. Okay. That's actually, in my opinion, the way it should be. We should be thinking so outside the box that, we come up with different ways to explain things. But that's a whole other issue I won't get into right now. But when Copernicus put forward this idea, it's interesting. If you go read Nietzsche in the 1700s, where he says, God is dead, this is that famous quote from him we all know. And he then goes on to say, we have killed him. In the next paragraph, he states, Copernicus did. By putting the sun in the center, he has pushed the notion of a creator far out into the infinite space. And
Yeah, but
if you go and
you never hear that part.
never, never. And if you research, just cross reference Copernicus and Nietzsche, you'll find that he refers to Copernican revolution. This was called,
Right.
for a reason. This was the beginning of the Enlightenment. This was the beginning of the naturalism, the stop asking the question of who. Before we had it was called naturalism back then. It wasn't called science yet, and alchemy. These are the two main fields that existed back then. And there was this notion that always in their equation that we were created. It was just it was absolutely a foregone conclusion at that point. Now, I think, but with Copernicus doing this, it it did remove the question of who, and we've gotten very far in technical scientific understandings to try to figure it out for ourselves. And I commend them. Like, I am not anti-science, I'm not anti progression, but they stopped asking the who and or what could possibly have put this here, and they do everything they can to deny that this is a creation, it seems. So just to flush it out, heliocentricity was created. From that, a Jesuit priest named Lemaitre, who was an astronomer as well, created the Big Bang cosmology. Now, the Big Bang cosmology, it includes the sizes and the distances, in this larger, vast universe that heliocentricity put forth, but it also gives them a creator. It gives the materialists an actual creator, which is material.
Matter.
If you are exactly matter, if you are intellectually honest with yourself and you follow a Big Bang cosmology, then what it will lead to is atheism. Now, of course, it's a gradient. It's not like every single person who believes in the Big Bang. A lot of people think, oh, well, God did it. But you see, that's anti what the official position is. If you really dig into what these cosmologists are saying about the Big Bang, they're choosing this on philosophical reasons. They do not want the possibility of a creator involved in any way, shape, or form. And that goes to that George Ellis quote. Actually, do you have it available?
George Ellis with the
Yeah.
philosophical implications. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to get the quote exactly. I didn't know if it was in this presentation or not. But this is what they've done. They've chosen their models based off of a philosophical basis. And here, let me see if you have it up. And George Ellis is a recent cosmologist who recognizes this.
Right there.
There we go. Let me see. People need to be aware that there is a range of models that could explain the observations. For instance, I can construct you a spherically symmetrical universe with Earth at its center, and you cannot disprove it based on observations. You can only exclude it on philosophical grounds. In my view, there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. What I want to bring to the open is the fact that we are using philosophical criteria in choosing our models. A lot of cosmology tries to hide that. That was George Ellis in 1995 in Scientific American. So the point I'm trying to make here is if we were being taught a geocentric model or being taught that both of them work just fine, it's just a matter of philosophy. Nobody, see, he just said cosmology tries to hide that. But the implications, if all of us were raised with this idea that we were geocentric, we would treat each other and ourselves better, in my opinion. The philosophy just dictates that we're special or unique, or that they created a favored location, as Hubble put.
Yep.
We cannot accept this favored location. It is intolerable because Hubble was one of those men who were pushing us philosophically into heliocentricity. He did everything in his power with redshift and all of this to try to prove that, but technically failed at the end of the day. And we'll get into that in another presentation.
What was his question again?
The gentleman asked in the chat, how does heliocentricity lead to atheism? So to sum it up, heliocentricity gave way to the Big Bang cosmology. Big Bang cosmology gives way to the billions and billions of years. The billions of years give way to the notion of evolution. And from that, you can derive a very strict materialist view that, all this just came from matter and, from time. Well, that is what the materialists need in order to make matter their god.
No, in fact, no, they don't, because time is directly proportional to entropy, so they're screwed there. So
yes, yeah, no, we could definitely get into all that, but
yeah, and the Big Bang isn't a scientific theory to begin with, so all this is just fairy tale stories. That's it.
It is. It's a bunch of just so stories.
Yep,
and
that's exactly what they are.
It's there to validate their belief. And, I guess you could commend them for working so hard to make this. But when a layman is face to face with this mountain of pseudoscience, they don't know what to think. They don't know what to say. So most people will say it was probably the Big Bang. And for the normal layperson, they may say, oh, well, God did the Big Bang, and that's fine. There's, like I said, it's a gradient. But if you're intellectually honest and you are philosophically honest with yourself, the Big Bang cosmology will lead you to an atheistic position.
Well, besides the Big Bang being pseudoscience, its tenets contradict Genesis, the first chapter of Genesis, anyway. So
yeah,
there's about 6 or 7 contradictions in there, so that it's done.
Yeah, and we're going to be getting into that with the cosmology presentation. But I get this a lot. People, accuse me of saying if you believe in heliocentricity that you're automatically an atheist or even a nihilist. But it's a gradient. I'm not talking about it just so specifically. But if you go off of the presuppositions that the Big Bang cosmology provides, then matter is your god.
Yes.
That's it.
Most people don't think about it. I mean, I've talked to many Christians, and I run into as many problems with Christians as I do with alleged Christians, as I do with materialists or atheists.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure,
Because
because they're confused. Most people are confused. Like I said, the majority of folks hear that Big Bang is the, kind of the modern thing
yeah,
that scientists say, and they incorporate it into their worldview.
I've been in churches that teach it.
Jeez. It's too much. And it's all
Somebody has done their
pseudoscience.
job well.
Oh yeah. No, this has been well crafted over the past 500 years. Hell, it might even go back to Babylon, all of this.
That's where it goes back to. That's where the,
But the point I'd like to make is heliocentricity and geocentricity. The coordinate system works the same. You can
yes,
make your predictions. People are living inside of a model. It's not. It's not that the like because of the heliocentric model that's what it is up there, or that's what it looks like up there. We're given all this cartoon CGI of planets and all of this nonsense that they give us when nobody really knows. I mean, let's be honest. Like we haven't gone. They claim what Voyager went past Jupiter and the Saturn rings. I personally don't trust anything the space agencies present. I think
really.
it's all garbage.
And then it sent back photos and information when it was traveling.
Yeah, I think from a couple billion miles away.
Really, have they?
Don't worry about the inverse square law or the amount of power that was on those satellites.
Yeah, it's called free space path loss. They need to get educated in that. It's a fiasco.
It really is. To think that we've gotten those high quality images from Pluto is just absolutely nonsense. Or Voyager, those images of Saturn back in the 70s technology. It's absolute nonsense for people to believe these things. But it is what it is. It's there, and it's a deception in a large regard. I'm not saying all of it is. I'm saying a lot of it is. But a person has to. People have a blind faith in it. Is the biggest problem. NASA has become the high priests of their cosmology and their scientism. Nobody questions NASA. Even when I was younger, before I got into this alternative cosmology view, I remember looking into the moon hoax, is what it was called, back in like 2003, 2004. And after a couple weeks of looking into it, hearing both sides, I concluded that it was probably fake. Now, even still, I rationalized it and said, oh, it was probably fake because they were in it was a weapons race with Russia, and they wanted to show Russia that they can get the ICBMs over to Russia. So they had to fake it for national security reasons. So, and I gave them a pass.
Right.
Gave them a pass. And then there were a couple other things. I used to, even 2009, 2010, I used to be like, why are they showing us cartoons all the time?
Yeah.
Like I'd see NASA photos or whatever, still gave them a pass. Then I learned about how they, with Hubble's imaging. It's all highly composited. It's not these single shot images. There's like 8 or 9 different images being layered in there and all this, but they present it as if that's just a picture of the sky.
Oh, they got big problems. We're going to get into some of those specific problems.
Yeah, Sophia is they try to say it's. Yeah, we'll get into that later. I know you and Robert went over that stuff extensively too.
We'll get into redshift and the CMB probably after. We're going to do information next, correct?
Absolutely, yeah. I think that'll kind of bring us along to that other point. It's kind of a good foundation that we're setting.
Yeah.
But
agreed.
The point I'm trying to make is I think every single human being has the ability to question their cosmology, and they should. We should not be accepting these things from on high. That is what scientism is.
Yep.
It's this belief that science or the people in the institutions are flawless.
Wait a second though. They're not science.
Mm-hmm.
See, there's where the problem begins.
Pseudoscience. Absolutely.
Yeah.
When we went over that last week, there is so much pseudoscience that's behaving like science, and that in the mainstream is treated as gospel.
Yep.
So that's what the point of this show is to make people think differently about what they accept and what they view as real science. And if you haven't seen the last episode that I did, everyone definitely take a look at it. John broke down what science is, and the distinction between scientism, and we're going to keep going in that direction. But everybody has the right to question their cosmology outside of the box that you're given. And that's honestly, that is the most liberating thing you could do. The cosmos is one of the most amazing and beautiful mysteries of humanity. If you look back at it, every single culture has their own cosmology. And this is something that we're not really taught in school. We're not taught the different cosmologies or what these other cultures thought of the Earth or thought of what was going on up there. So everybody should be doing that, in my opinion. But we're going to be busting up the mainstream here pretty soon. We'll get to the cosmology presentation that John has, not next week, but the week after. So look forward to that. Is there anything you'd like to add to the show today?
Yeah, maybe one thing that may help clear some things up. I usually talk to people about this, and they can usually relate to it. And I think we talked about this one time. That, for an example, my 10-year-old boy, he's a video game champion, boy. I tell you what, he's really good at those video games, and he can recognize the patterns and the regularities in the game. However, he is absolutely clueless of the underlying architecture of the game. But he intuitively knows that the patterns and regularities that he recognizes in the game are not the cause of the game.
That is an amazing way to put it, by the way.
I just like to leave you with that. My last salvo for this subject.
No, that's dead on. Yeah. So all you materialists out there, check your paradigm. There's nothing wrong with it. That's what this is about. I think most people have been conscripted a paradigm that they're unaware of. They don't even know that they're in a paradigm. So I think that everybody needs to go down the path of, trying to understand what's real. And when you look at real science, like quantum physics, and how it's so consistent over so many years and so many different individuals doing it, it really lets a person in to what's going on here. And the materialist doesn't have an answer for it. So with that, I think we'll leave it there, and we'll start up next week with the with information and how that plays into this.
It'll be very rewarding.
Yeah, it'll definitely kind of concretize this and demonstrate the idealism is really what the philosophical side of this is called. And a lot of people go towards like what's it called, the simulation theory. What is that more popular physicist who's been coming out with this lately? I forget his name. The older black gentleman.
Oh, I don't know if he's on the simulation or the virtual construct, but is it?
Actually, I think he
Gates?
is. Gates. He's the one who said he's found the code within the construct, so to speak.
Yeah, I think I tried to find his papers that go into it. I can't find them.
Here we are. It says theoretical physicist finds computer code in string theory, is what they're saying here. But
yeah, string theory is not a scientific theory, though. But
oh no, I agree. But this has become hotly debated. You had Neil deGrasse Tyson do a show. It was like, actually, Robert Bassano told me about it, where they were going on. Wait, you had several conversations with him about this simulation.
Yeah, I witnessed. I saw that video. It wasn't last year, a couple of years. How old is that video? It was
it's about a year and a half, I think.
Yeah, it was Neil smoking deGrasse Tyson and
or Neil disgrace Tyson.
Yeah, and he was talking to him, and Gates said that he found error correcting codes.
Wow.
So in these designs, I don't know where he got the designs. So, like I said, I tried to dig into that because as soon as I heard it, I said, "Wow, that's pretty interesting." Because codes, I mean, we got codes in DNA, so that led me down that. I just couldn't find anything.
Yeah. So there's a lot to go over here. I mean, the implications of quantum physics when ascertained, like what is actually happening here.
No,
First,
quantum mechanics points directly to a virtual construct. You can't get out. You can't get out from
yeah,
under.
I agree. But what it does mainly is destroy the materialist paradigm. I think that,
Oh yeah, it's there. It's over. It was
uh,
over years ago.
yeah, we as humans need to. I think that we need to move forward in our culture, and so the more conversations like this, hopefully, we can get people's attention on this. But I'm going to go ahead and leave it there. Thank you so much for joining me tonight, John.
You're welcome, sir.
We'll be, and what we're going to do is put up the material in the description at a later time. I'm going to go ahead and turn these into PDFs as we go along.
Okay.
Um, so I want to give a big shout out to everybody who joined me tonight, especially the ones who disagree. They're the only reason we're out here is because it's about thinking differently, and so thank you everybody for coming out, and have a good evening.